Alright, so just got back from seeing The Batman.
A lot to discuss about this movie.
It's a beefy fucking film.
It is. It is.
2 hours and 55 minutes with credits.
Yeah.
I know everyone's expectations has been kind of everywhere with this movie. I'd say mostly thought it was going to be excellent. I'm fully prepared to admit, when this movie was kind of in production, I kind of had some spite for it. I saw that it seemed like it was coming at a time where this project was just kind of being seized from people. I know Jay Olivia wouldn't be lying if they weren't honest that Ben Affleck's script was amazing. I always had a little bit of just animosity towards the production. It was nothing against Matt Reeves or anything like that. It was strictly Walter Hamada and Toby Emmerich and all the other asshats who kind of made Warner Brothers fall apart. I tried not to let all of that affect this movie going in, because I really did want to give it a fair shot. I wanted to be open-minded about DC moving forward. I really liked Shazam. Didn't really like Wonder Woman 84.
I haven't seen it yet.
But seeing that this movie kind of took place in its own little mythos, kind of like Joker did, and I really liked Joker, so that alone kind of gave me a consideration that the rest of the DCU kind of maybe didn't have. Then I watched actually some of Matt Reeves' films. I kind of expanded upon his filmography. And holy shit, I was missing some great fucking movies.
I still need to check out some of his other filmography.
Yeah, I actually always thought Rise of the Planet of the Apes was him. It actually wasn't. And it's pretty telling that that's my least favorite of that trilogy. I just thought they got better and better as they went along. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes, I think, are excellent films. They really showcase gritty action, like really what you can get away with in a PG-13 setting. And they tell pretty fucking epic stories with a lot of depth and vivid characters. So, after seeing what Matt Reeves was really capable of doing, I started getting pretty fucking excited for this movie. I had initial doubts about Robert Pattinson as Batman, the same way I did with Ben Affleck. I heard the name cast, and in my mind I was like, that motherfucker can't be Batman.
See, that was my reaction to Ben Affleck. But then, after, having that feeling with Ben Affleck going into Batman vs. Superman, and then being proven wrong, I was looking like, okay, not what I expected, but I'll give it a shot. And the more things I heard about it, the more I was like, okay. So, I didn't have the same gut reaction that you did with Robert Pattinson, but that was just because my mind kind of went immediately to I've been down this road and I know how it turned out, so.
Fair enough, I should have been exactly right there, but, it was probably some of the spite that I felt from this movie. And it's production history, because it definitely was pretty shitty what happened to these actors and filmmakers and shit. But for some reason, I just wasn't sold on it. And, to be fair, haven't really seen a lot of movies with Robert Pattinson besides the ones that everyone tells me I shouldn't judge my opinion on Robert Pattinson for.
I think it's absolutely fair to judge your opinion of Robert Pattinson off of Goblet of Fire.
I forget that he's in that. I honestly do. Cedric Diggory's actually a pretty good character.
Yeah, every time you it's like you forget about it until you remember it, and then you're he was good in that.
Twilight really left a bad taste in my mouth, and I know I really should give The Lighthouse a chance. I'm trying, guys. I haven't, because every time I see it, it's a brand new copy, and it's like $40 at my video store, and it's crazy. You motherfuckers must love that movie and just hold on to it for dear life.
You must consider, too, Robert Pattinson actively hated Twilight.
That's fair, He
could have been just sabotaging the roles.
And I'm always willing to side, on the actors and the filmmakers when they just have a terrible production like that. Or, they just hate what they're a part of and they denounce it. I'm always going to take their side. And every time this movie got delayed, the more time I had to really sit with it, the more I'm like, I really should give this a fair shot. That said, holy shit. I am so glad that I was wrong.
Yeah.
He was fucking excellent.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. There's more I want to see from him. But this was a good first showcase.
Exactly. They're really serious about this being a year 2 Batman, at least how I would vision him.
Wouldn't disagree with you there. Just kind of a take on Batman that will still, appeal to the masses while still showing, a different side of the character that people can still enjoy.
Right, exactly. I was sold on his characterization from the very first personal narration that he had. The way he described himself, I just kind of sat there. I'm like, okay, that's fucking epic. Mm-hmm. And I knew we were about to see something great from him.
From that first bit, if not the whole movie, at least he was going to be great.
Exactly. I was never really sold on his bat suit, because at the time, I saw the images. It was only the Cavill one. It looked really leathery and Daredevil-like, and it was the gun bat logo. At least at the time, that's what it was speculated. It didn't really catch my eye a whole lot, but, I can live with that. The performance definitely behind the costume was insane. Mm-hmm. It's definitely one of my favorite characterizations of Batman we've gotten on film. I'd say I like it more than Christian Bale and Michael Keaton.
I don't know if I'm ready to make a claim like that yet.
I think I'm confident.
I don't. I think that we don't have enough of a sample size yet, especially seeing what he can bring to the table as Bruce Wayne. We need to see his Bruce Wayne more.
I do think the Bruce Wayne we do see makes perfect sense why we're seeing him at this point in his career.
Yes.
I do want to see him later on, though, inherit the facade that everyone wants to see.
Yeah, admittedly, I still haven't seen Robert Pattinson in a ton of films, but I need to see elements of him being, he can't be just so moody all the time. We really need to see a lot of charisma.
The person I was unsure about how I would feel was Andy Serkis as Alfred.
Yep.
And he did a terrific job.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think part of it was just, it's weird seeing him on the side of good in a movie, I think.
What do you mean?
I'm so used to seeing him as a villain character.
Oh, Andy Serkis in general?
Yeah.
He plays, well, you haven't seen him. He plays Caesar in the Planet of the Apes movies.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my thing. Here was this actor that's known for, being Smeagol, doing all this motion capture work. Here he is directing Venom 2 and being the next Alfred.
Directed Venom 2?
He did. I still haven't seen it, but just what a weird directorial debut. That's all I'll say. That's an odd claim to fame.
Maybe I'll Redbox it sometime so we can watch it.
Hell, I see it brand new for now less than $15. So,
do you really think it would be worth it to not Redbox it first, and you wouldn't even have to pay for it?
That's for another day. No, there's a heart-to-heart with Alfred and Bruce, and it's one of my favorite moments in the entire film.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm just going to say it right now, because I don't know what all the trailers gave away.
I don't either.
The ones that I saw, there were things that I want to talk about that weren't promoted, and I'd like to not have to do that in a spoiler-free section. I just think all the cast... pretty fucking excellent.
Yeah, the casting was absolutely excellent, and you gotta hand it to the writers to that too, because even with great casting, there's only so much they can do if the writing's bad. I was telling you earlier one thing that I noticed. What was his name? It was one of the producers is tied to the Gears of War movie that is still being worked on. Dylan Clark, who produced this and all 3 of the modern Planet of the Apes films.
Interesting.
And he is apparently tied to the Gears of War film, and he was recently asked about it, and he said there's progress being made on it. They're still in pre-production. Mm-hmm. Pre-production. They don't have anything set in stone yet, but
it's called prepubescent production in the biz, Keegan.
But, you know, given that history, you almost kind of wonder, you know, could Matt Reeves direct the Gears of War movie?
If he really wanted to, I don't see why not.
Do you think he'd be willing to try a video game movie?
I don't know. There's a pretty big stigma for the genre. But Sonic 2 is going to cure that. Sonic 2 is going to be a fucking masterpiece. Just you wait.
Dare you say it would cure that stigma fast?
If they put Knuckles, Idris Elba Knuckles, in a fucking cowboy Stetson, yeah.
I guess like an after credit scene in Sonic 2?
Maybe. We're getting way off topic. Can I take a hit?
Yes.
Ghost Chem Dog.
This video brought to you by Ghost Hemp. Oh, you're about to cough like a...
We're not! Don't sue us!
All persons in this video are over the age of 21, and all products being consumed are illegal in the municipalities we live in.
No, man, like, every single fucking character, they gave their A game. Commissioner Gordon, Jeffrey Wright was excellent. His chemistry with Bruce Wayne, fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
One of my... I'm gonna keep saying one of my favorite scenes, because there's just a lot of them. There's a lot of great shit in this movie.
Another thing I want to bring up with him, though, before we go ahead with that. What was his name?
Jeffrey Wright.
Jeffrey Wright. He was, like, doing really good at just being, like, that gritty noir cop.
Exactly.
Like, he just leaned into the campiness of that role and made it his own. And it was like, he did such a great take on it.
But just, you really feel like he is the only good cop.
Yeah.
He does such a great job convincing you that he can be trusted.
Mm. He's got dad vibes.
Zoe Kravitz was an excellent Selena Kyle.
Yes.
I think I can
I need to see more from her, too, though.
I think I can get away with saying that she's probably my favorite Catwoman on film. Michelle Pfeiffer is definitely always going to have, like, a special place in my heart.
Anne Hathaway did her best with what she was dealt.
I actually don't mind her.
Yeah.
She just really didn't add anything to The Dark Knight Rises for me.
Yeah.
Like, not a thing.
Like, what is the point of having both Catwoman and Talia al Ghul?
Yeah, that's another day. But as when I envision Selena Kyle, just how I know her from the comics, it's exactly like this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you're familiar with the stories that this is pulling from, you know exactly which characters are going to connect in what way. And it's pretty well. It's done well. I'd say for all the story threads that exist in this movie, you know, the runtime's definitely justified. There were a few points where I thought it was, like, a little slow. Never enough where I was, like, not on the edge of my seat with what was going on. I can just understand people that may complain about the bloat.
Yeah.
It's weird coming from me, because I tend to really like the slow burns.
The moment of the shoe dropping, you know, it was a little predictable, but it was executed well.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Anyone that's ever seen a movie will see what's going to happen.
And we'll dive a little bit more into this when we get into the spoiler section.
Right, yeah. But I don't think it's a spoiler to say that Paul Dano was the Riddler, because
that was advertised.
That was advertised, yeah. I mean, hell, it was on the fucking poster.
Yeah, absolutely.
that we walked
absolutely.
into. So. That's the one casting announcement that I, like, looked at, and I'm like, all right, I want to see that. And I was hearing people coming out of the theater talking about how the DCU is on the right track because they're going after these unknown actors. And I'm like, Paul Dano's been in some shit.
This is the first thing I've ever seen him in.
He's in The Girl Next Door. He fucking gets a condom put on him by a porn star.
See, there is only one movie I've seen that is called The Girl Next Door, and it is nothing like that.
It's funny because I've only seen my version of The Girl Next Door. But he was also in There Will Be Blood. He was fucking Eli and Paul.
I haven't watched that.
Oh, it's excellent. You would fucking love it. That, like, casting announcement, that was one of those that I'm like, I would have never thought about that. But it makes perfect sense. And I gotta say, his performance, like, it really stuck with me. Like, I was very excited to see where it was going to go, but I was not expecting that from him.
It really felt like... And when I say this, I don't want you guys to think it's a bad thing, because I think they executed it really well. But it just kind of felt like the Riddler, but make it incel.
Yeah, that sounds very, like, clickbaity in, like, the fucking Screen Rant way. Like, how they promoted fucking...
But there is some logic to it.
This incel bait film.
But there is some logic to it.
No, you really see just how deranged and obsessed with Batman this man is. Like, I mean, that's how I've always seen the Riddler. You know?
Yeah.
Just, he thinks it's so ridiculous that there's all these just societal riddles that can never be solved.
Mm-hmm.
And that the world's greatest detective still outwits him every time.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I thought a great performance.
Yeah.
I could kind of see it, and I'm sure I'm going to be wrong. You know, I could see it going either way. I wonder how most people are going to feel about it, though. Like, I could see it getting made fun of in the same way as, like, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex.
I don't know. I think overall, with how positive the reception to this film has been so far...
Is it being received well? I don't know shit about it.
For the most part, from what I'm seeing, yeah, it's being received pretty well.
That's one thing I'm very proud of that I've been able to stay away from is people's early reactions. It didn't help a few times. John Flickinger posted a picture of the George Clooney suit with
What?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. That was the one early reaction. I'm like, that's acceptable.
Was that your reaction after watching The Batman?
Not quite.
I would agree.
I'm trying to really show, like, all the positives I'm acknowledging before I kind of delve into my issues with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, what the fuck am I thinking? The soundtrack, man, that was godly shit.
Yes.
Like,
yes. Oh my god.
And
that is the... I don't think it's a stretch to say that is the best soundtrack a Batman film has ever had.
I definitely think it's better than what I've heard from Hans Zimmer. When I think of the Bat theme, like, this one's definitely still sticking in my head for a lot of the reasons that Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL's Men Are Still Good suite sat with me. For me, though, the highlight of the score was the Riddler theme.
Mm-hmm.
That shit was terrifying.
Yeah. And
it was super sinister. And, it had that, like, inquisitive little whimsical shit after being bombastic.
Yeah.
And it perfectly complemented Paul Dano's performance.
Yes.
Like, I would absolutely buy a vinyl of that film score.
Him kind of taking on his own personality to the performance.
Mm-hmm. And I know this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment, but I do want to pay respect. When a filmmaker can actually let me listen to a Nirvana song in a movie, and me to sit there and like, this is actually very fitting for what's going on. I got to commend that, because that really doesn't happen ever.
Like, we had one other friend with us. He was laughing at it, but we're sitting there and we're just like, honestly though, shit slaps.
I wouldn't say it slaps. Typically when a movie uses like Nirvana in its soundtrack, I find it to be pretty lazy way of setting tone. But this one kind of happened well after the tone was definitely set.
Yeah.
For what you needed to have for the whole movie to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of added to the ambiance and the flavor of this Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
I could see people calling him an emo punk, but fuck him.
No, he's definitely a metalcore kid. Fit for a king type stuff.
Mm-hmm. The action sequences, some of them I thought were epic. Just nothing short of epic. Just exactly what I've come to expect with a Matt Reeves film at this point. There are points where, the shots are breathtaking. There's some points where you're definitely reminded of the budget, though. There's flips that happen that, just kind of looked right out of Deadpool 1. There's this...
That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, it's the noticeable CGI. You understand it's what they had to work with.
I think a lot of the fight scenes were filmed very similarly to Deadpool 2.
What do you mean?
Just choreographed similarly. And in similar settings.
Mm-hmm. For what they had to work with, it was definitely pretty awesome. Hell, with all that said, I think The Batman is a great film.
Yeah.
It's got some bloat to it.
Definitely. That is.
I'd say really it's only maybe 10 minutes though. It's not nearly as long as what I'm sure some people are going to act like it is.
It's paced well. It's just,
for all the story threads that it has, I'd say 80% of them get everything it needs, from the shot length to the specific line of dialogue and the pause between them. All the timing for about 80% of the movie is perfect. There's about 20% of the film where I think just shortening some of the scenes might have helped.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some characters I really felt like just they weren't in the movie as much as they should have been.
Yeah.
So are you ready to rate this thing?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Alright. I think I know what I'm going to rate it. I'll let you go first, though.
I would say, if I'm going to go with my gut, because I was going back and forth a lot about this, but I think I got to go with my gut and just say 3 stars. Yeah,
guys. We could have saw this movie, a few days ago at, this fan first event.
Mm-hmm.
It was, $20, but it was far as...
Which I've seen a few creators on TikTok that went and did that, and... They were saying pretty good things about it, but...
It just, it seemed like a cool experience, and I thought the comic book aspect was interesting, but that's really all that made it stand out as this fan event. It wasn't anything super, super big.
Yeah, when you first told me about it, I thought you were saying, there was going to be, a small Batman exhibit that we could explore.
Right, and that's kind of on us for our expectations again, but, it's part of what went into the decision not to go, and... I will say, after seeing this movie, I'm kind of glad we went with the local theater.
We literally paid, less than half of what we would have.
Right, yeah. I try to make these ratings out to be, just that. They're like Michelin stars. You earn a certain amount of stars, and all of them, less for under 1 star, obviously. It's an accomplishment. And I'll fully own up to just my expectations being up the wazoo for this film. I went into this movie expecting 5 stars.
I kind of did too.
I shit you not.
I kind of...
From the way it was being promoted and everything...
We are victims of our own expectations.
Yeah, I'll absolutely own up to that. And I feel like I actually did a pretty good job at, coming out of this movie, not being, swept up in all the hype. Really kind of just being honest about how I felt about it. Minus, where my expectations were, not trying to take that into consideration. It's just the way this movie was being promoted, the trailers and everything, I saw a masterpiece. I saw a Batman movie that could easily be better than The Dark Knight.
It could have been.
I chose to believe in that, and I don't regret that at all. I'll always hope that a movie can be better than its predecessor.
Mm-hmm.
That's how creative growth happens, I think. Is it better than The Dark Knight?
No.
I do think I enjoy it more than Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises, and Man of Steel. as far as it ranking in what I've seen with Matt Reeves so far, I will be honest. I do think I enjoy both of his Planet of the Apes movies more. I'm feeling 3 stars is a very correct score, just objectively for me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think this is a good lesson in, just understanding how you feel about hype culture. I don't regret getting hyped for this.
Absolutely.
I would gladly get hyped for another movie again if it looked as good as this one did.
Yes.
That aspect,
Especially
I will
because
never put down.
I think that, what they were trying to do with this movie was just kind of establish this world for this Batman.
That's exactly what I left the theater thinking. I'm like, I know exactly where this franchise could go. But with that, I think we're treading into spoiler territory.
Yes.
So if you haven't seen the Batman yet, definitely see it.
Yeah, it's definite recommend.
It's, as far as DC content goes, it's definitely up there as, just some of the best projects going on right now.
Yes.
I will say, it definitely feels like the odd one out. When you look at this DC Needs Heroes trailer, they're promoting, like, the Batman, Black Adam, The Flash, and Batgirl. DC is needed for 2022. This movie clearly looks like the odd one out, at least to me.
No, it's clearly not, like, canon to the rest of the DCEU.
Right, it just looks like Warner Brothers is
Unless that is how Flash is...
They're just desperate for a hit, when you think about it from a business perspective. They're trying to hit that home run film of, that low-budget superhero movie that just cracks $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And, this could get close. Like, it absolutely could. Do I think it'll beat No Way Home at the box office? No.
No.
I really don't. And I'm willing to take the L if I'm wrong,
Well, and I'll tell you, I'll say it on camera. I don't even know that this beats out No Way Home in my own personal opinion, so...
I will say, I do think this is better than No Way Home. I think No Way Home just overall has a better pace. I'm definitely going to see it again, because I want to support it at the box office for sure.
It shows that somebody at DC at least gives somewhat of a fuck about Batman.
Exactly. So with that said, we're going to jump right into spoilers now.
Yes.
So, my first little nitpick of the movie, it happened right at the very beginning of the movie.
Just the
editing of the order of the events at the very beginning. It starts with the title card, then it gets into the villain intro. Very similar to The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger's Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Then it cuts to the streets of Gotham, introducing Batman as the Shadows, which excellent scene. The streets of Gotham scene, fucking excellent. However, if you want my opinion, I think the order should have been, it introduces the Riddler the way it does, then it cuts to the title card, then it cuts to the streets of Gotham and Batman.
See, I'm with you to an extent, but I also feel like having the title card be the first thing you see is also just kind of one of the tropes of film noir, so I did kind of appreciate that.
See, and that's totally fair, that's why I'm not going to act like it's an objective criticism. It's just something I personally would have preferred,
right.
I think.
And I don't think there really is such a thing as objective criticism.
Truthfully, there's not. Like, it's flat out not. Every professional critic, there is no such thing as objectivity. Because someone decided that this is the rule.
You went to film school? Cool, so did a bunch of other people, and they've all interpreted it differently than you did.
Yeah, the person with that opinion had an opinion, and, denoted it as fact.
And other people have interpreted it their own way.
Exactly. Objectivity be damned. But the reason why I'm leaning towards that kind of setup, the villain intro, title card, Streets of Gotham, is because some time passes in that scene because it reincorporates what happens in that villain intro when it's in the Streets of Gotham. But a bit of time has passed in between those two events. I think the title card would have been a good way to break it up.
I think the bit of time that passes shows, when Robert Pattinson's kind of giving out his monologue.
See, and that's fair too. I think it would have helped those ideas flow together better.
Because, if the kids were out trick-or-treating, and you can infer that time had passed between when his kids left the house and when Riddler made it into his apartment, then you can probably guess that there was probably at least an hour there. I mean, we're getting way too into specifics for that right now, but I think it makes sense at least.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, just a personal preference.
Yeah.
But nah, man. After that, I thought it was a very good slow burn up until it started incorporating elements with Falcone and Maroni, trying to remind you then that there's also the Riddler there. It tends to lose a little focus between those story beats.
Yeah, all those elements.
Right, and it's only briefly it does that. I will say it definitely picks it back up and definitely converges everything into a very satisfying story point at the climax.
It just kind of over-encumbers itself with plot threads at one point.
I think so, yeah. I was saying that, this is one of my favorite characterizations of Batman that I've seen on film.
Mm-hmm.
That's because the way he describes himself at the very beginning, he described himself as a nocturnal animal. And I thought that was perfect.
That's exactly what a young Batman, is supposed to feel like.
Right, he would view himself as like a creature.
Yeah.
And, it's pretty ironic, given Matt Reeves is a horror director, essentially.
Once again, the horror director to comic book movie director pipeline. Been even more prevalent than usual lately.
Yeah. Hell, that's the fucking trend that they're following up on. Not the hiring unknown actors. The fucking horror director they're scoping out to make their superhero movie universe film.
Yeah.
But I really dug his voice. It didn't fucking sound like he was giving himself laryngitis.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I mentioned earlier that this movie borrows pretty heavily from a specific story. And I see it being the roadmap to this trilogy, essentially. Assuming, this is a trilogy.
I hope so. Or
Just
at least like a 2-film arc.
Right. The tone of the film reminded me a lot of the Dark Detective run. The story itself felt like the first chapter in a big, long Halloween story. Because the movie starts on Halloween, and it narrates the date exactly like the Long Halloween. And if you've either read the comic series or you've seen the films, you know that there's, the story involving Falcone and Selena Kyle. All that's in this movie. I speculated that John Turturro was being hush-hush about his character for a reason. Because if he was playing Carmine Falcone, that seems like a pretty throwaway villain. But the fact they weren't marketing him at all got me thinking. I'm like, I bet they're going to do, the story where he is Selena Kyle's father. And that's exactly what they do. The way it's told, though, is excellent.
Yes.
Like, I knew from the moment she said that, I don't have a relationship with him, I'm like, yep, that's absolutely his daughter.
I didn't know what it was going to be because I'm not as, familiar with the comics as Carrick is, but it was still an interesting plot thread. I thought it was a good twist. It's a good twist. It's a good twist coming from the perspective of somebody who, isn't as versed in the comics.
Right, yeah. I thought John Turturro was excellent as Falcone.
Yes.
Like, he was the perfect kind of sleazy crime guy you could have had. And I don't see that casting ever being topped.
No, I don't either.
I thought was one of the best casting choices of the whole movie.
Yes.
Another one I failed to mention in the spoiler-free section, even though I know it was promoted, it was Colin Trevor as Cobblepot.
Yeah.
You know, I was sold on him once I saw all the makeup he was put in, but like when he was first cast, I'm like, I don't see that at all. You know? But he was an excellent Cobblepot.
Yeah.
And I like that they gave him the waddle, you know, and they had it in a perfectly authentic comedic moment.
Yeah, like like this movie does have a few moments of comedic relief, but they're all executed very well.
Yes, all of the moments of humor I think are spot on. You know, they're not that cringy humor. It's the humor that's situational. It actually feels, you know, like something that would happen in this situation.
Like
a reaction that would happen from a live human being. That's the kind of pathos that I think, you know, people on Twitter like claiming these superhero movies need.
It doesn't feel Whedon-esque.
Exactly. That's what I think just has killed, you know, these movies for me. Only thing about his Penguin, how's he not going to smoke a cigar?
You know what? You're fucking right.
Like, I'm sorry. If you are going to have Cobblepot in a movie, but, like, you're too afraid to have him smoking a cigar, don't put him in the movie. From here on out, he's great in this movie, but don't ever fucking put Cobblepot in a movie without a cigar again. That's your one pass, you know, to do.
Bare minimum, give him the umbrella gun.
No, he's got to fucking at least be smoking a pipe. You know, like, smoking is part of his iconic design. I'm sorry.
Fair. Very fair.
Like, you're gonna have a movie that, you know, shows every kind of facet of the drug trade, but you can't show a main villain smoking. Fuck yourself. You know, those days are long over.
Absolutely.
The reason why I say that this is the first chapter in this long Halloween saga or trilogy, it ends on November 6th. The whole movie takes place in a week. I assume the second movie is going to start, you know, sometime after that, and it's going to start with the same kind of narration, like the date, and, you know, go on from there up until Christmas and stuff like that, maybe involve Calendar Man. That's pure speculation on my part.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that would be fucking epic. Like a Matt Reeves long Halloween trilogy.
Do you have any predictions on what the sequel will be named?
The Batman 2.
You really think that'll be it?
Or The Batman and Robin.
The Batman and the Robin. Tokyo Drift.
The Batman and the Robin. I like that. Another story that it was clearly taken inspiration from was Batman Hush.
Yeah.
They definitely played around with the idea of this Thomas Elliot figure, this Hush villain with Riddler hybrid sort of thing.
Having him have like an alias as Edward Elliot.
Exactly. But it's a little detail. I appreciate that he is Edward Nashton. You know, Edward Nashton was a different Riddler from a different Earth. It's just a little detail that helps solidify Matt Reeves' claim that, you know, this is his own universe. And I like that. You know? It's just a little detail, but I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I've also seen a lot of stories where he's Edward Nashton, but Nigma is like a second pseudonym for him.
See, I would buy that. You know, maybe in the sequel he comes back and just embraces Enigma.
Yeah.
I could see that. I know it jumps ahead a little bit in, you know, where our train of logic should go, but what did you think of the tease?
At the end?
Yeah. With Riddler
and the unknown villain or character.
Yeah, he is credited as the unnamed Arkham prisoner. On IMDb, he is credited as someone named Officer Stanley Merkel. I don't know shit about him, but from what I gather, he was a dirty cop and sent to Arkham or Blackgate. That's about it. I don't buy the IMDb claim because if you want my opinion, that's motherfucking Two-Face.
Yeah, I have no idea. We'll have to see about that one.
It's just the reason why I think he's Two-Face is because half of his face is super burnt, it looks like.
You don't really see it.
That's the thing. Matt Reeves intended to obscure it because, he didn't want official confirmation on who it is, but, it looks exactly like a silhouette of Two-Face.
Yeah.
Just even down to, the hair. When you think back to the animated series hair, half of, his intact face still has, the mad scientist poofy-ass hair. And, it's just ghoul burn victim on the other half. That's exactly what it looks like in the silhouette, at least to me.
Yeah.
And I think the actor who they got to make that cameo would make an excellent Harvey. And it makes perfect sense in the context of the movie.
Yeah, he was great as Druig.
Yeah, exactly. The idea of it being the Joker, I feel like we've seen the Joker a lot, Batman's definitely not as interesting without the Joker, but we don't need to see him right away.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he would make an excellent Harvey Dent, and that'd be a hugely missed opportunity, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree.
If they made him Joker, or whoever else.
I agree.
There was an excellent car chase that went down with Batman, Penguin.
Yes, that was...
It was shot in the rain, and the lighting was excellent.
Oh my god!
Those are the moments where, sometimes you can see where the budget issues show, but, I didn't think it took away from any of the tension in those moments. The only time it really jumped out to me, I'm like, ooh, that looks pretty bad, is when he's in the winged bat suit and he fucking glides.
Yeah.
And it has, that... I don't know if it's a drone cam or if he's just, it got, a camera attached to his cowl. It's it just looked like a YouTube video almost. It totally threw me off.
Yeah, it wasn't. I didn't like the idea of the flight suit.
And, he takes a tumble, after smacking a train. And just the flips he does, I'm like, wow, that looks like Deadpool 1 Age of Ultron shit right there. But, it is what it is. That's the... Maybe this movie will release DLC to finish up the special effects like No Way Home did.
Did No Way Home really do that?
Yeah, they released a different version in theaters that touched up the special effects.
Texture updates.
The water looks so good now. Ooh!
Oh.
Just fucking breaking our necks over here.
Literally.
Yeah, the one actor I was most excited to see, Paul Dano, he did an excellent job. His performance even shocked me, even though I had a feeling like it was going to be terrific.
I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't what I got.
I'll be honest, I was expecting something along the lines of what we got, but he took it to such a crazier level.
Yeah.
There's one moment, he literally, has an orgasm. He's so crazy. But it's great. That's the thing. It's fucking great. He sells it so well.
Yeah.
Once he's finally unmasked and he finally talks face to face with Batman.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up.
That's pure Edward Nygma to me.
Well, that was such a great moment. The first time they meet and he's like, oh, Batman, and thinking that Batman's gonna be on his side, and Batman's like, the fuck, dude? It's like, what the fuck are you on about?
But I do think the reveal that he knew who Bruce Wayne was, it was very well pulled off.
I will say that the fact that reveal happened made me surprised that Riddler hasn't been killed off already.
Well, that's what I think they're going to set up with Two-Face. You know, they're going to buddy up, you know, a la Batman Forever.
You think Two-Face is going to end up turning on him?
Who knows?
We'll see.
One thing that I don't think really worked for me, though, like, I thought about it for a bit, and I've come to the conclusion, no, it really didn't work with me. You know, the actors have the kind of chemistry that makes me believe they fucked on the Batmobile, for sure. As far as the romance between Batman and Catwoman, I don't think it was executed very well.
The bat should have ate the cat.
That would have fixed everything. Canonizing that.
Would have made it a 5-star film.
That's probably the one liberty that was taken, you know, by Warner Brothers. Like, you cannot let Batman eat pussy in this movie. Because heroes don't do that. DC's official words, not mine.
Jesus Christ. Real heroes don't pleasure women.
Yeah. Now I know Joker's meant to be like, you know, an incel empowerment film. But the reason why I don't think it worked is because it's like, she goes through this tragic event where her girlfriend gets killed. And, you know, that anyone who's ever seen a movie should have saw coming a mile away. As soon as Selina leaves her alone in that apartment, I'm like, she's fucked, you know? She's gonna die.
That is the equivalent.
She's on the fucking news, like, with all this dirt on this.
That is the cop movie equivalent
DA and cop
of going into a dark room by yourself in a slasher.
Exactly. But, you know, the morning, essentially, after she discovers that she's dead, she's already fucking making out with Batman. And I'm like, that's some serious, like, trauma hypersexuality going on. And I don't think that's what the movie was going for.
Yeah.
Like, it just
I don't think it's established that it's her girlfriend. I think it's just said that it's her friend.
I may be, you know, reading too much into that. I assumed it was girlfriend. I know Selena's bisexual.
Yeah, I know Zoe Kravitz has said that, but I do think it was just a friend.
Okay. See, knowing that it's her friend, okay, yeah, I could see that, but I was convinced it was her girlfriend, so maybe that's an issue that on a second viewing I'll be like, okay.
No, I don't think it ever says her friend, because I don't think that girl was staying there. I think she just went to Selena's apartment for safety that night or something. Yeah. When we say that there's a lot to watch in this movie, guys, there really is. There's stuff that we probably are completely misremembering or aren't remembering.
Mm-hmm. I still think about 10 minutes could have been shaved off. You know, that would have been a perfectly structured pace.
That would have been, 2 hours and 45 minutes.
I still would have left feeling like I wanted to see more of, like, the Riddler and Falcone. But I understand specifically with Falcone, his role is pretty minuscule in The Long Halloween.
Yeah.
It's meant to really just be the connective tissue of Selina Kyle and the crime families. It's just, his performance was so good. That's the thing. It's like, these performances are great. I'd just like to see more of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best way to describe this movie, it's like a whodunit mystery.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really set up, like, suspicions where, the movie wants you to think a certain way.
There's a moment where, there's definitely a moment where the other shoe drops, and it is the reveal that, Falcone was the informant.
Yeah, he was the rat with wings.
Yeah, he was the rat with wings. But it's still kind of like one of those where when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I saw it coming, but that's cool. Like, that was one of the ideas I had that it would be eventually.
But I also didn't feel like the movie was really trying to intrigue me to, like, you know, have my suspicions about a specific person. Like, who was this rat?
Yeah.
You know? I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, if that was Matt Reeves' attempt to, like, subvert that trope in these kind of, like, mystery stories that, you know, lead you certain ways of thinking before, you know, flipping your expectations on its head. If that was his attempt to, you know, go against that, I commend him for it. You know, I'm not going to act like it's wrong or the movie suffers because of it.
Mm-hmm.
I just, you know, when you compare it directly to The Long Halloween, that's a story that definitely sets up doubt everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I won't spoil anything about it, but that's a great fucking Batman mystery. And if they're pulling the card where they want it to be a whole trilogy, I think it could occupy 3 films.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that would be pretty epic.
Mm-hmm. And it really does kind of feel like a spiritual successor to The Dark Knight.
In a lot of ways, yeah. I won't say it's like, you know, a one-to-one, you know, retelling, essentially, like, you know, The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, as far as what it homages to, it's really mostly the comics. Joker suffered because it definitely paid homage too heavily to Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
This one, I was so worried it was going to just be, you know, Seven or Zodiac just with Batman.
Yeah.
It's nothing like that. It definitely feels like an original story, you know, with a vision.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely feel Matt Reeves' creative stamp on it.
Yeah.
Something else I thought was a little disappointing. There was something about the climax that just felt kind of anticlimactic, and I think it was the budget kind of being a factor.
There was a little bit of a tease, like some foreshadowing earlier in the movie that Bruce Wayne might die. Like this would be a one-off film. Yeah, because they said, you know, it might be the end of the Batman. Like Robert Pattinson said that. And then, you know, there's a moment where he has to cut an electrified wire so that it doesn't fall down into the water below and electrocute all the citizens all the civilians that are there. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that moment should have had more suspense, like, because it's revealed almost immediately after he hits the water that he survived, and I was like, there should have been a little bit more tension built there. Like, have him just float up to the top, face up at first for a minute.
Yeah, and the moment that follows is him rescuing all the civilians with the flare. That's, like, amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, that moment was awesome. It's just right before
like seeing him actually connecting with the citizens of Gotham and actually trying to help the recovery effort after everything that happened throughout the movie. Was just fantastic.
It's just as far as the actual climax, though, it's pretty weirdly structured.
There's no actual square off with Riddler.
Well, not only that, you know, like it builds with Falcone, and then he gets killed. Then it builds to Riddler, and then he gets captured. And then it cuts to like 5 guys with guns, even though Riddler's like, all these people are about to do my bidding. It's really just like 5 guys. Batman just comes down, beats him up pretty fast, and like that's it. Like then it's like him on the wire.
And then it does
like,
they're killing Martha thing.
Like that moment where he's fighting all those guys, that should have been like a solid group fight, I think.
I'm glad you're not saying my comparison to They're Killing Martha is wrong.
I don't even think I get it.
Like when the one criminal said, "I am vengeance," and like Batman was like, "Oh."
That was the "I'm Martha" moment?
Or They're Killing Martha.
I thought that scene was pretty cool. Like where he's face to face with this guy that he already beat up.
Oh yeah, I think it's like the same concept but executed way better.
It's just like, I know a lot of people might disagree with it. I think the look he gives is like that first look of like, what I'm doing is really not making a difference right now.
Yeah.
Like, these criminals are just weeds, Like, I thought that was a great moment to see this young Batman see.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's going to really play a key role into his character arc, or it should.
Yeah.
I know people are going to take issue with his Bruce Wayne, not having this facade. And I'm like, it wouldn't make sense for this reclusive man to have one yet. Especially with the events that go on in this movie, and his reputation, like the Waynes, are tarnished now.
Mm-hmm.
They've been exposed to have ties to the crime syndicate families. I am surprised though they didn't say anything about the Court of Owls. I was certain once Riddler started putting these pieces together with the Waynes that the Court of Owls would, be name dropped. They haven't been yet.
I don't know enough about the Court of Owls, so. Wrong guy to ask.
I won't spend any time talking about it here. It's just, there's so much lore to them. But, it's up to Matt Reeves whether or not he wants them to exist.
Yep.
It's not going to be any skin off my ass. I just think they would kind of fit this universe perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think if that fight were pretty longer, the climax would have been suitable.
Yeah.
It just, it just felt...
Make it seem like there's a bunch of them there. Like, make it seem like, oh my god, they are about to just fish in a barrel them.
Yeah, the stakes were there. Like, all the tension was there. It's just, I don't think it lasted long enough. It kind of just, it fingers you.
Yeah.
That's a good way to describe this movie. I think it just fingers you. At least to me. But, what do I know? A whole lot of nothing is what I know. And I think with that said, we've covered a lot. Definitely not everything. I just think most of what we'd like to say.
Yeah. I can't think of anything else.
So, with that said, I think our scores are pretty justified.
Yeah, I mean, definitely go see this movie.
I'm pretty confident I, have an idea of where this would rank in my DC movies list. I do need to see it again, so some things, stick, and I know what to look for, to answer some questions I'm left with. But, like I said, the score, I think, really, really fits, how I currently feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that said, catch y'all next time.
Probably for Sonic 2.
Definitely at least for Sonic 2. I know there's Uncharted that's out, which I don't know shit about Uncharted, I've dabbled in, the first 2 games, but maybe for, an hour.
I have a morbid curiosity about it. I don't think it's going to be great, but I don't think it's going to be awful.
So, who knows?
Certainly not me.
But I am very excited to see where they go with this universe, because the first Rise of the Planet of the Apes movie, I know Matt Reeves didn't make, but that one sits at a 3-star, and then the sequel's just built upon that. So there's only room to grow here.
Yeah.
I very much believe it. We could easily get a 5-star Batman film for this one. We got to remember, Batman Begins wasn't a 5-star film when it came out.
Yeah.
And then we saw where it went. So perhaps the dawn is just before the dawn with this.
Do you mean it's always darkest just before the dawn?
It's always darkest before the dark of justice. I don't know if you want to cap it
James
out.
Non's having a strong call of ambulance.
The darkest is always dawn before the night. At
At least that's how it seems for DC at the moment. God, it must be like. I know there's still, Rebirth fans that are getting enjoyment out of the new issues that are coming out, but like comic sales are not doing well for DC.
Yeah.
And I know nobody buys comics anymore, but I think DC is just burning a hole in these companies' wallets. And we got a movie like this where they're really trying to get that smash hit, that Avengers 1 or that fucking Iron Man 1.
Mm-hmm. Kind of franchise spawner, even.
Exactly.
You think maybe they're hoping this could be the reset of the DCEU?
I am 100% confident. I will bet my left nut on this one that there has been several discussions with Matt Reeves, with Walter Hamada and Ann Sarnoff about having Robert Pattinson's Batman, be the next Batman for a Justice League. And he's probably said, no, this is my universe.
Do you think that would change if, like, someone in Discovery came to him with, like, a proposition for a roadmap that he actually liked?
Maybe if it were a roadmap and, he oversaw it, sure. But, like, I can tell he wants no involvement with the DCEU.
If somebody at Discovery after the merger comes to him and he's like, all right, Matt, here's what we want to do with the universe. Here's how we feel like incorporating you in. And if Matt likes it, he'd be like, all right.
Well, he's slated for full creative control with these next movies, and he has, like, an animated series coming out.
Oh.
A Batman animated series, and that one I'm very excited for. Namely because of the soundtrack in this movie. Got heavy animated series vibes from it. Very bombastic and gothic.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
So, catch you all next time. See you later.
That's a good plate of nachos.
One thing I forgot to mention
Yeah.
in the spoiler-free review. Showcased a lot about what makes Batman awesome. But I don't really think they did a whole lot with just his predator aspect, him hiding in the darkness and abducting people in the darkness.
Yes.
You get a little glimpse of his, like, sneaking ability in, like, one scene, but then, like, immediately he, like, is back to, being in suit, and it's like every entrance, he just emerges and announces to, like, everyone around him, like, yeah, I'm Batman. Here to kick your ass.
Absolutely.
I do hope we see, like, as far as his growth, him, like, hiding in the darkness, like, watching prey and stuff like that.
Right.
However, the buddy we saw it with, he made, like, a really good point. Where, like, it's like he emerges out of the darkness. It's very reminiscent of the animated series, in my opinion.
Yes.
So, again, that's just a stylistic thing.
Cheese pull was right in front of the camera.
Oh, I bet that was good.
Oh.
Oh, well.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I hope that translated as well on camera as I thought it did.
I know you're playing Gears. Are you excited for Futurama coming back?
You know, I haven't actually not watched all of Futurama. I've only watched a handful of episodes.
I tuned in to it like on Comedy Central.
Yeah.
So there's probably episodes I've missed. But it's pretty great.
I watched it when I saw it was on.
I just think they ended it perfectly, and I don't see a need, for it to come back.
Yeah, me either.
But if it's good, it's good, Dangly.
Just the way it should be.